Hey, this is Gurds Hundal, and welcome to the Inner Light Project. This show is for anyone who's wanting to lead a happier, healthier, and enlightened life. Create more self-love, inject more joy and abundance into their daily life. Join me for inspiring interviews and spiritual topics so you can shine your inner light. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Inner Light Project. My name is Gurds Hundal and today I want to bring you somebody that is putting joy first. Laurie Seymour is the founder of the Baca Institute, the host of the Wisdom Talk Radio, and the creator of the Quantum Connection Process. She's a psychotherapist, trainer and solutions engineer, and she believes we can all dissolve old patterns and live an aligned life with Source. Hi Laurie, I'm so grateful to have you on the show and thank you for joining us today.
I am so excited to be here with you today, Gurds. I don't know where we're going to go, and I don't know how we're going to get there, wherever there is. And so that makes this really a pleasure.
Bless you. I'm just so grateful to talk to you. We've just had a conversation beforehand, and it's just so interesting the similarities of some of our family lineages. I find it so interesting when we talk to one another how much we can learn about each other and through each other.
Indeed. And then how we can kind of go from, okay, I've learned something about you, and what does that let me know about myself?
Yeah, we're always connected, aren't we? It doesn't matter like you're on the other side of the pond.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would love to take the listeners back to your journey. What was your life like when you founded the Baca Institute?
Oh my goodness. I almost want to take it back just a tad further because the original name for it was different. It was the Baca Journey. Then it was like, no, it's the Baca Institute, but that was a few years.
Okay.
And my background and training is as a psychotherapist. So I did that for a number of years. And there's lots of things we can talk about in relationship to that, but at some point, I left that. It was like, nope, I had these experiences, and a lot of them that said, that's not the way to go. And it's not what's possible. And I was always so interested in what's possible. And so when I began the Baca Institute / the Baca Journey, my teacher had been gone for a few years. And she had died in 2008.
Wow.
And I was, at that point, I was working as a solutions engineer. So I was working in the tech world.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it gets a little, yeah. And I was a spiritual teacher at the same time. So it was a little wild of a time for a number of years there. And when I started the Baca Journey, I'd had a lot of grief, really, that I went through as when my teacher passed, and I say that quickly, but it shook everything, and it opened me up in so many different ways too. And by the time this came around, it was like, no, yes, you're doing this other work that's not your life's work, and you have so much to share and so much that needs to be brought out into the world now. We had done that before, and I had been initiated as the Tureya Grand Master by my teacher. So this lineage that I was holding, but in a way I was hiding out too. And I couldn't hide out anymore. And I think, do you know what? I think that's an ongoing theme, because there's another level of how I've been hiding out and I cannot any longer right now. So that's another piece. But anyway, when I started bringing this out, I started creating a website. It was still early. It wasn't early in the days of websites, but it was early in compared to what is now.
Yeah.
And I had such a learning curve, my goodness, because I was trying to do it all myself. And even as I got help, even as I got guidance, it still was a massive undertaking, given that I was doing a full-time job and traveling all over for this job.
Wow. Wow.
Because I was working with companies that really that some of the, I'd say the top 50 companies in the world.
Wow.
You know, I was working for Google and Intel and Northrop Grumman and
Ooh,
um, Facebook and Amazon, and so
wow.
it was kind of a crazy time, but I was so committed to starting to write, starting to publish regularly of these articles and doing this work with people that I could do, in the in-between moments, so to speak.
Wow. I got goosebumps as you said about, your master teaching you and, you're afraid to come out of I guess, the spiritual closet.
Hmm.
And I can relate with you. It's so fascinating when you're in these industries where you think that's where life is meant to be, but actually your soul is craving something deeper, more meaningful, something that can be of service to others. Because I used to be a journalist. So my whole life I wanted to be a health journalist. I was, at some of the biggest firms. I worked in Canada as well. It's at a news channel in Canada as well. And I thought my whole life was like, I want to just help people with their health. I'd worked in a pharmacy. I'm very strange. I worked in a pharmacy when I was at university, even though I was studying journalism.
Uh-huh.
So I was listening to people's problems from like the age of 18 in a pharmacy. People would hand over their prescriptions to me and tell their life story. I would help friends growing up. It was just natural to me. But again,
Hmm.
like yourself, I was afraid to take it to a deeper level because I thought, no,
Hmm.
this is the world that I want to be in. This is who I am. I guess we have this title, and I had this title, I'm always going to be a health journalist, and that's it. I've studied
Ah,
hard. I must
right,
follow this
right.
path. Who am I to go on a different path? And who am I to show up in the world thinking I'm an expert in something, right? And so I took a long time to come out of my spiritual closet. And I found when I was sharing it with friends I call from the past, they didn't really
Hmm.
understand this new person I was or this new being. So then I kind of
Um,
hid it. And then when I started meeting people on the spiritual journey, I thought, oh, that's normal. We can have these conversations. Almost like,
we can be many things at once.
yes. And you can have both careers and it's okay. We all have, I guess, I can't think of the word like we're multi-skilled, aren't we, in many
Hmm.
ways? And
Hmm.
we can use our gifts in multiple ways. But at that time, I didn't realize that yourself. The spiritual side is so powerful and so meaningful. And the more work we do in the spiritual side, the more we meet ourselves, the more we come back home to ourselves, and the more we can share with others.
Yeah, we come back home to ourselves. And for me, because I had been a psychotherapist by my training and I was in private practice for a long time, it wasn't like this was such a far field. The far field was the tech world.
Oh,
That
wow.
was the strange stuff. I'd never been trained in that. That's another whole story we won't go into today of how I got there. But it did give me a lot. There's so many things that it offered to me in contrast with what I had been doing. And
Mm,
and um, I had been teaching classes. I had been to the UK, I'd been to London to teach even
wow.
before this time where I started. I So there was a lot of um, mixing of all the genres, mixing of all the life paths. And
Mm,
really, it's all one life path anyway.
yeah. You're right. Everything that we do leads us up to a new level of who we're becoming. So, like,
Hmm.
even though I worked in the pharmacy whilst I was at uni and I was a journalist, then I walked away from journalism. I worked with young people that taught me how to heal my inner child. Then I did lots of different things, then went into the coaching world, the therapy side. It led me to my greatest teaching, which was myself, but learning how to heal so I could serve others. Because without me doing the inner work and the depths, how could I serve others
Hmm.
without knowing it myself? And I think I am so grateful for all those different things that I did. Like, I would train people up and down the country, and there was like all these different things that I was doing. But at the time, it didn't make sense, but it felt good.
Do you think that if you were to look back on everything that you have done and everything that you have been, that there could be anything that you'd let go of and say, oh, well, that wasn't important?
No, because everything shaped me into who I am now.
Yeah.
And there were
Yes.
lessons and learnings along the way. And I'm sure the same with you.
Hmm.
Different things, you being in tech, that was you getting out of your comfort zone into an area that you didn't know and learning, I'm guessing, about energies and people and their behaviors, why they are the way they are.
Well, I knew all of that because that had been my course, my study. That had been what I was working with because I had been consulting, I had been training. I mean, so I had been doing all, but this took me, well, first of all, I got an inside view into so many companies that I would never have been able to get into.
Mm.
And I got to see a whole other way that I got to certainly see how capitalism worked.
Okay.
Um, but even more than that, I mean, I was working with people that would never have crossed my path, either as a psychotherapist or as a Turea master or as a spiritual teacher or as a mentor. They would never have, I was working with Department of Defense entities. I was working with,
Oh
with Google and Intel, and those were my big customers, and Kaiser, which is the big healthcare
my God.
company in the US.
Wow.
And so it also taught me a lot about teamwork because I had been doing a lot on my own in some ways in a lot of the different areas of my life. And it taught me about being part of a team, and it gave me a way to use a part of myself that I didn't use every day, but that I had to use every day. And then, it was like, okay, this is where it is. And I got to see in a very practical way how we can find solutions that are really unusual, because that was the group I was working in. Solutions that are not the norm. I was in a group within a group called Custom Network Solutions.
Oh, wow.
So we were creating things that hadn't necessarily been put together in the same way before.
Wow. Wow. So I'm guessing also that being in those situations, learning as a team and evolving, you also learn different, not that you didn't know about certain people's behaviors, but you were learning more about how people adapt in group settings. Why are they triggered? What are the reasonings behind it? So when you're
Mhm.
dealing with clients, you can say, well, have you thought of this scenario and this scenario? And
And it's helped me because I've done a lot of work with people that I would call innovators, or
Mm,
really beyond innovation into creating something new.
wow.
And how does that work? And how do we tap into parts of ourselves even when we're working in what we might think of as more linear kinds of positions or jobs or creations? That bigger picture, that spiritual source still offers us something within that what looks like a linear kind of situation.
Yeah, I'm glad
But
you
it's
brought that
not
up.
only linear.
I'm glad you said that because everything is creative. It depends how we see it and how we perceive it.
Ah,
But a lot of the times, the creativity in those industries is very rigid.
right.
It's not,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's not
It's
allowed
got
to
to fit within these
flow. Yeah.
parameters.
This is the deadline. This is how it needs to work. And,
Mm,
yeah. Whereas when creativity is freeing, it can create so much more and it allows
yeah.
us to just flow and be more connected with the universe and ourselves. And
And yeah, and think about this is that the universe is not, it's not just a way to describe something that sounds spiritual. Really, if we bring it down to energy and frequency, we are part of the universe. That's when you said at the very beginning, is how cool it is to be with somebody on the other side of the world. And, yeah, we impact each other. We
mm,
are not separate. We are part of this quantum reality, if you will.
yeah.
And as that, then we can tap into things that are way beyond what we might think of as our experience. We
Mm,
have more than that to tap into.
yeah. Which is quite beautiful, as you're saying about the teamwork, because that's how
Mhm.
we grow together, that's how we flourish together.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, and I like to think of that as co-creation in multiple dimensions,
Oh,
because co-creation really is, to me, for me, my definition of it has to do with self and self, how I create with the source of the universe, with
oh,
source. So when I tap into my own inner guidance, what I'm tapping into is those other dimensions that I may not know about yet.
Mm.
And in a team, we get to do that collectively. So that if everybody is there connected with themselves, then when we have a project to work on, think of all those different dimensions of creativity
Oh,
that we're tapping into.
wow. That
Yeah,
is so fascinating.
yeah,
Gosh. And all the possibilities that happen just being together. Yeah, that's so interesting. Sometimes we think, oh, we know everything, but nobody knows everything.
yeah.
But as a team to tap into that connection with source, oh my God, you're right. It's
And
almost
then bring
like,
it to each other.
yeah.
Ooh,
Oh, that is powerful.
it is so powerful and it's potent and we have so many things we have to deal with right now in the world. That's how we're going to be able to really do it.
That's so interesting you said that because you're right. Because with what's happening, as we were mentioning before this conversation was about, we're in the year nine and it's all about endings and shedding the past, letting go. And I feel like, and I don't know if you feel the same, but the way the structures have been in society are demolishing. And we're creating a
Absolutely.
new being of creativity, but in such a more feminine kind of flow way where we can trust ourselves, help one another. And the old ways of the system isn't working anymore in this day and age. And we need
No,
something different. We're
I,
craving
I
connection.
we're craving connection and one of the things that I've created because of just feeling that so intensely
Yeah.
on the heel well really it came before I even published my book Unconditional Remembrance is I started doing what I called salons of life.
Mm.
um, and they are gathering in people's living rooms and they're saying, there are people that I know so far. I don't know that well, if the right person came along, absolutely. But they invite their friends or their family into their
Mm.
living room, into their home, and we have an experience. We come together to have an energetic experience of remembrance, of knowing that we're not separate, of feeling our own interconnection.
Wow.
And in doing that, there's something that gets created like a node of connection in that place.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm most excited about right now. I mean, I have all these other projects and courses and whatever that I do and clients that I see. And the salons are, it's feel like in some way the next step for me in my work in the world.
I can hear that. And I think you're right. There is so much more we need of that in the world because we are missing that connection. And, I know I'm a lot younger than you, growing up, in the late 80s, like we did have connection. We did connect with one another. We weren't on our phones.
Hmm.
We'd play outside, we'd connect, we'd have conversations, we'd get to know people, their stories. Whereas now I feel young people, in one way, it's great that we have this technology because we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It would be on like a telephone call. Like it'd be
Yeah.
so strange
Yeah.
right now. But in one way, we've lost that connection with humanity, which is why there's this epidemic of loneliness and why people are craving connection on things like TikTok and Instagram and
Hmm.
social media. But we're missing that everyday connection and being in the same room with people and having a real conversation
Hmm.
versus just on a screen and just
Exactly.
not having those
Exactly.
depths that we used to have. I miss the craziness of. I was talking to somebody a while back on the podcast, and we're talking about color as well, like as in everyone used to wear
Oh.
bright colors, and there was this
Mm.
connection that everybody was happier, and now everything is quite grey and boring
Mhm.
and
Mm.
rigid, and the buildings are more rigid and grey than before. It's
Yeah, and we need to shift it. And
yeah.
I don't know if we can really shift that without really coming together.
Hmm.
I mean, coming together physically, because
Yeah.
the thing that most breaks my heart is seeing all of the separation, hearing
Yeah.
it, feeling it, um, hearing politicians create it.
I know. Oh my God.
And while I don't want us to, necessarily to get off on
Yeah.
all of that, because we could talk about that for a long
Yeah.
time. So how do we if we remember the truth, which is
Mm.
none of us are separate,
Yeah,
we are not separate,
we're all
then there's
interconnected.
something really powerful that can start to happen.
Yeah, we're all interconnected. We all are here to help one another to grow and to evolve. And you're right,
Hmm.
somewhere down the last 30 years, it's all been about separation and pushing people away. And it's almost, I guess, in order to control everybody and to make them feel powerless. So they don't know knowledge of self. Whereas
Yeah.
I do feel we did know more knowledge of self growing up as kids, but now society's kids don't have that knowledge of self, I find interesting.
Interesting. I haven't tracked that. But as you say that, I really resonate with that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and we've got to deal with it, and it's here. You also talked about this being a nine
Yes.
year, and things are ending. They are completing, but we're also having to let go of the old structures because they're not working, they're dissolving, they're blowing up.
Yeah.
And so what are we going to allow to evolve in its place?
Hmm. Freedom, I would say, flow, happiness, joy, if we allow it.
Okay. Hmm. I'm with you. I'm with you. And love,
Oh, 100%.
really tuning into, if we tune into our connection with ourself, we start tuning into our own experience of love of self, love
Yeah.
within ourselves. And and when I love myself, then I can look outside and I don't see you as separate.
Yeah.
I mean, you're another person, but you're not other.
Yeah.
You are that reflection of God to me.
Or each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, that is beautiful. You just made me think, like, when was that turning point for you to say, you've got all these gifts and, you were doing different jobs, but you were still hiding in the spiritual closet. When did you say to yourself, like, enough is enough? I need to share this with the world?
Mm. Whew. As I said, really, I've done this over and over because I really wasn't in the spiritual closet, so to speak, as one might think.
Yeah.
But in myself,
Yeah.
the maybe I could just speak most easily about right now, and I don't even know what I'm going to say.
Okay.
But I'm aware, having put this book out, that there's a huge message. Someone said, to me recently, this is a message for humanity. And that's a kind of a gulp feeling, like gulp, really? And then it's like, what are you talking about? You know this. It is that. And for me to step out to be the face of that in a way, or to share it in the platforms that I'm being called to do that in, means that um,
Hold
I
back.
cannot pass it off. I cannot just kind of do it adjacently.
Yeah.
Another person said to me recently, you are the CEO of this company. And they
Oof.
weren't talking about the Baca Institute, but it's like
Yeah.
a bigger stepping into and claiming,
Mm.
not ever in ego. That's always been my fear.
Yeah.
But this isn't about ego. This is about inviting. This is the invitation. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm the CEO as the invitation. And I've never
Oof.
thought about that like that.
Yeah. That's interesting that.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, please do. My brain went, oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, it's like an invitation. I just want to say you've been, oh, how can I put it into words? It's an invitation to come back home to yourself, but to a powerful version of yourself that you
Yes.
can no longer hide, and you have to be out there in order to be that person to help others more on another level. Because if you don't show up, how are those people going to hear you, and how can you give that message if you're not sharing it? I've always
Yes.
believed that if you don't do the work that you do and you don't share it, you're blocking somebody else from having that healing.
Mm, mm. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Because we don't know what impact we have on people and what we've learned that helps other people. And you could just say one thing and that could just shift their whole being.
Right. Right. And would we really want to hold back on that?
But we
It,
do, don't we,
we
right?
do. And for me, that's the nature of self-doubt,
Mm.
because self-doubt was huge in my life,
Mm.
meaning I I think from when I was very little, I had the sensing of something big. I don't mean necessarily big about me, but that there was something big, but that
Yeah.
I couldn't quite tap into it. I couldn't quite remember it. And part of that had to do with my father dying when I was very
Oh,
young, and he was the person that I knew about love through.
oh,
He was that experience for me.
bless.
And so self-doubt became a kind of theme through so much of my life of,
Mm.
yes, I know this, but no, it's probably just your ego. It's probably just your delusional self.
Oh,
Even as I was a successful psychotherapist, I had a successful, if you're a lovely marriage. I mean, I
yeah.
had so many things that were great, and that
Mm.
self-doubt still hung around.
It's interesting you brought up about your dad because again, there's a similarity between us. My mum's dad passed away when she was younger, and my mum worked as a nurse, and she had a lot of self-doubt. And that, what we don't realize, it gets handed down to the next generation. So kind of like your daughter, I
Mhm.
had that, but I didn't understand why until I understood the patterns. And when I dissolved the patterns, I was able to take my power back because I couldn't understand why there were certain things that were happening to me that weren't
Mm.
necessarily linked to me, but I could feel them really strong.
Right, right.
And I feel as well, like when I talk to my mum and your generation, you guys, like I don't know why we say guys because we're not guys, but women. It's a habit. It's a habit, isn't it? We're
I'm
both
with you.
guys as women. And when we look at the history of women, you all had to fight for so many rights to be independent,
Mm,
making your own money. There was a lot of things you guys had to fight about the patriarchy and, trying to find your places in the world of course you guys all had self-doubt because society was making you doubt yourself. It's
mm,
only
mm,
now, I would say, in the last probably 10 years that society is changing and shifting and women are speaking up more than ever before. And being a
mhm.
millennial, I see more women than ever before being in their power, having businesses, speaking their truth, and really owning their futures and their lives. I don't remember seeing that growing up as a child. I just remember looking at Barbie dolls and playing with them, and it was all about how we looked and how we acted
Mm.
versus who we could become.
Right, right. And then there's the the physical level of that, like who we can become, and there's also the what are we moving into as a soul?
Hmm.
What are we remembering? What are we growing into? What's our next evolution? How are we raising our frequency?
Yeah.
How are we evolving into what is next for us? Because I do firmly believe, and I want to say I know, but I'll put it out as I believe,
Yeah.
um, that we are here to grow. We came into physical beings to remember, to take the journey of remembrance, and to
Hmm.
remember that bigness, that fullness of our own connection. And then as we do that, there's a next level and another step and another step. And it's not just about like taking care of the what we came in with.
Yeah.
It's what's next? What's our
Hmm.
potential? What's our possibility?
Yeah. And that only
And we can find
happens.
out from that too.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm just thinking as you were saying that, like, the reason why people struggle with that is because we've struggled with vulnerability. Because again, growing up,
Mm,
your generation, the generation as well after, and so forth, were made to feel bad for being vulnerable. It was, vulnerable was classed as being weak. You have to toughen out
mhm,
like a man. But now society is embracing vulnerability, and that's where I feel like the structures are breaking down in society because we're allowing vulnerability to come out because vulnerability is our authentic self. So when we allow that to come into our life, we are then able to be vulnerable as we're having this conversation today,
mhm.
to really connect to a higher source of energy.
Yeah. And here's where the question that comes sometimes into my own consciousness. Wouldn't we be foolish not to want to connect with that?
Yeah, it's fun.
But it takes it takes surrender. Well, you use the word
Mm.
vulnerability, but surrender is a key piece in all of that. And
Yeah.
you're not surrendering to another person. You're not even surrendering to hmm, an entity or a belief system.
Yeah.
You're surrendering to your own inner connection. And you're
Yeah.
saying, wow, I'm not just this physical body and this personality. I'm more than this. And why not allow that um, to guide me, to influence, to co-create with?
Yeah, that's so true. Because everything is about coming back home to self. But I
Mm,
guess as a society, we haven't, and obviously you've done the work, I've done the work, a lot of people have done the work, but some people like they haven't ever connected to self. So how do they know self? How can they connect to that source energy if they have no time of knowledge of self, if they're chasing the rat race, you know,
hmm
pleasing, satisfying other people, their needs instead of actually looking from within.
Right,
Everything is from within.
right. Everything is from within.
Yeah, gosh, this is such an interesting conversation. We've gone one way to another way, but
I
I love
know,
it.
I know, I know.
But I did want to ask you about your book. Can you tell us about your book, Unconditional Remembrance, Your Connection to Source?
Sure. I'll even give a quick
Ooh.
visual
Oh, I love the
because
color. It's
I had a
beautiful.
friend that did she didn't do it as a cover. It's one of her paintings,
Oh,
and
wow.
she's from the Netherlands, and she does these what are called intuitive flow paintings. And
Wow.
I've all for a long time had the sensing that there was that was one of her paintings that I needed to use.
Hmm.
And then I went on her gallery and I was like, oh, it's that.
I love that. That's beautiful. The energy as well of the oranges and the creams.
Yes.
It's almost like that higher being kind of energy.
It feels like that to me. And this book is so much of a transmission, a message, a guidance, an activator. You can just read the book, but if you read it from your own inside, your own place inside,
Mm.
you're going to receive the energy of it
Ooh,
because there isn't an energy so much in these pages. So through the words that came through me, through the stories that I was to tell, through the experiences or exercises, if you will, that I include,
wow.
they are really to activate your own remembering.
That's powerful.
Mm,
I can actually feel that the energy of the book as we're talking about it. It's very powerful. There is a lot of depth, a lot of healing, a lot of wisdom.
mm.
It is the remembrance, just like the title, coming back home to self of who you are.
Yeah. And
Wow.
it's that fullness of who we are when we remember
Mm.
that we're an expression of source.
Yeah.
I mean, from a quantum physics point of view, and we think about the hologram means that, well, if I'm a hologram of the universe, it means I contain everything of the universe
Yeah.
within me.
It's
And
powerful.
so when I get quiet, when I start to look within, I can start to tap into those other aspects and dimensions that aren't part of my everyday life.
Yeah. But that is your real life, I'm going to call it. The other
Well,
life is what
yeah.
we think slash control slash
hmm
what society has taught us, but our truth is source, and everything that
Our
source is trying
truth
to
is
share with
source.
us. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's
that's
quite powerful, isn't
beautiful.
it? Our truth is source.
Yeah, I think you need to write that. Our truth. Ooh.
I will write that actually. I'm going to write that down. God, it is, isn't it? I never really thought of it
And
that
it's
way.
not that our personality is our false self, because
Yeah.
that creates a whole other kind of dissonance. That thinking it's judgment.
Hmm.
And I am much more in my work with people wanting to have people appreciate their whole journey
Yeah.
and value it and learn from it. And okay, who would I be if I didn't have that? I wouldn't be who I am. And
Hmm.
so my journey from of forgetting to remembrance
Yeah.
is a big part of who I am. And I don't want to, I wouldn't go back and change any of that because I started understanding the value of some of those much more difficult experiences.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, and I almost feel from what I'm hearing from you is that the world that we believe we're living in is where we're meant to heal our patterns, our wounds, our trauma, so we can actually really come back home to source, who
Yeah.
is who we truly are. Because when we come back to source, nobody can take our power away, nobody can mistreat us, nobody can take us down, I guess, the wrong paths. We will be connected to source's energy, which is love, which is abundant, which is vulnerability, which is peace.
Hmm.
But peace cannot be achieved until we do that inner work to heal those wounds and dissolve those patterns so we can then meet source.
Yeah. However,
Ooh,
and this is a big however for me,
yeah.
we don't have to spend our whole lives healing
Yes.
because in a moment of remembrance,
Mm.
so much of that dissipates because we get to recognize, we get to experience, not just to know it intellectually, not as a concept, but when we experience that self-love,
Yeah.
we recognize, oh, yes, that, but there's that and that and that and that.
Yeah. And
I
just
don't know
from,
how that lands with you.
oh, 100%, because you just reminded me of something you said earlier in the show, and you were talking about the grief of your dad. And I really believe grief is our biggest teacher. Grief is what helps us to come
Mm,
back home to self, because I lost my grandma in 2014. She was my only grandparent that I ever really knew, because my dad's mum lived in a different country and I saw her once, and unfortunately she passed away when I was young. Both my mum and dad's dads died when they were young. So
mhm,
she was my only grandparent, and my neighbor next door, who she was such a sweetheart, she was like my third grandma that I used to call her. But
mhm.
obviously your grandparents are always, you're going to have a deeper connection with your,
Yeah.
your family, uh, a grandparent. And when she passed away, I didn't know how to deal with it. I just shut down my emotions. I'd done a lot of inner work at that time, but I was like, no, no, I'm fine. I carried on with work. I'm like, I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Mhm,
But then I had a kidney problem back in 2015. I was actually born with a kidney defect. I didn't know till I was 30,
mhm,
which was a journey itself. Again, that was me
mhm,
coming back to
mhm.
source, but I didn't know at that time. It was
Right?
taking me away from the old world to come back to this new world. And in 2018, just after my operation, so I had my operation December 2017, and by February 2018, just when I'd had my stent removal from the operation, my uncle passed away, my mum's eldest brother. And
Mm,
that was the first time I learned how to grieve anybody. So I had to grieve 4 years on my grandma, my uncle, the pain in my family, and I couldn't run away from that because
mm,
I was healing my kidney, I was healing from the operation, and it was the first time I felt this deep connection with source. Not that I hadn't felt it before. I'd felt it
mhm,
before in
mhm,
2012 when I had a cancer scare and I was misdiagnosed back then. That was like the starting point. But in
mhm.
2018 was the biggest steps of my life where I had to meet grief. I had to understand grief. I had to
Yeah.
heal it, feel it, heal it, and deal with it. And
Mhm,
that's when I felt this deeper connection we saw. So I feel you're 100% right. It's different situations, but I do feel grief does, if we feel it and we heal it.
if we allow it to teach us rather
Yes,
than, because feeling it, people can get stuck in the feeling of it.
that's true. But not staying
And
there
and that's,
forever. Yeah.
yeah, like that's one of the things that I got to witness being a psychotherapist. It's like, well, wait a minute. This is the same story I've heard over and over and over
Mm,
again, and people get caught in the stories.
yes, that's true. And
And
it's a
so there's
choice.
nothing new, or there's not the creation energy cannot come in.
Yeah. Which you're right, because obviously I held on to my grandma's narrative of passing in 4 years before that. But when
Mm,
my uncle passed away, I learned how to grieve heal from grief
Hmm.
in that situation. It was within, I think, about a month. I just kind of was just like, this has happened. I have to accept it. This is life. Okay,
Hmm.
what do I need to do now? Feel my feelings and let's move on. They don't want me to be sad. They want me to live my life. And then suddenly source energy just came in with such a different way
Wow.
of learning different layers, healing things, helping people. There
Mm-hmm.
was such a deeper level that I've never experienced in my life before, but I couldn't
Hmm.
explain it at the time to people. But I do agree
No.
with you. You're right that you don't have to do so much trauma work to get to that point. It can be a situation in your life that can happen that just shifts your story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's almost, it's, I was going to say it's almost like, but I think it is that it shifts your reality.
Yes. Yeah. So fascinating,
We
isn't it?
perceive as reality.
Yeah. But again, you have a choice whether you want to hear it or not.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed. Yes. Yes.
We
Yes.
are, well, I was just going to say, we're coming towards the end of the show. I can't believe the time. I was like, oh my God. But I've got a few more questions to ask you.
Okay.
What are your 5 top tips for someone who wants to dissolve their old patterns, but they don't really know where to start?
Hmm. I think I would venture to say, and I know I said this to you earlier, that I don't do 5 tips, but that being said, I would venture to say they do know where to start. And
Mm.
it's probably in the place that they least want to look at,
Yeah.
or that they dismiss as being inconsequential.
Mm.
Because it doesn't have to be, we don't have to choose the right thing. There is no right thing.
Yeah.
We have to be willing, first of all, to say yes. Yes, do I want to know? Yes, do I want to explore? And then get curious.
Mm.
That were I could put that as a tip. Like, become curious about yourself.
Yeah.
Why is this happening? Why do I always feel this way? What do I not know or think I don't know about myself? That's
Mm.
the Because curiosity takes you out of judgment, and judgment stops everything cold. When I'm judging myself as being unworthy, unlovable, not good enough, whatever it is, and I could go on. I've done many aspects of those. Um, then I've stopped everything. I've
Yeah.
stopped. I've stopped what's possible.
Yeah.
And then I would say, take some time, even every day. Why not? To get quiet.
Mm.
Just to say, I'm not going to, and don't even call it meditation, even though I teach something called Tureya meditation. Don't even think about it as meditation. Think about
Mm.
it. I'm just going to take 5 minutes to get quiet. And then
Mm.
you're going to see first probably how hard that is to
Yeah.
get quiet. And then you might, if you do it over time, don't do it for, 3 days and say, well, that didn't work. But give yourself the gift of it being a little bit of time, of give yourself maybe even 2 weeks. I'm going to do this. I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't know and then see what comes up, what emerges out of that quiet time. What
Mm.
do I notice? And just maybe a different time of the day, spend a little time with just doing a little review of your day, maybe at the end of the day. What
Mm.
what did I notice about today? What maybe, even though I was very focused on all my work and all the things I had to do to accomplish my to-do list, how did it feel to do that? What did I
Mm.
what did I experience as I was doing those things? And then maybe it's then giving some space for what the things that are your dreams that come up, the ideas, the new thoughts, and to notice what those are. Well, I had this thought, but your if your normal tendency is to dismiss it, try out something different. This is part of curiosity, but it's around trying something new. And I don't mean a new activity, but instead of denying the possibility of this thought,
Mm.
consider that if the thought came to you, it's because it's coming for a reason.
Yeah. That's
And
powerful.
yeah, it might be something to explore in there.
Wow.
And I have on my website a what I call the quantum connection quiz. And it's really about what is your quantum connection archetype? What is the way that you most normally or naturally engage with that bigger picture?
Mm.
And we all have that. And this is just, several different stuff, four different styles, but it's a way to begin to just have another perspective, another lens to look through.
That's beautiful. I was just going to say it's so interesting about you were saying about meditation because I remember my journey of the first time I meditated, I couldn't even close my eyes. Then the next day I was looking around the room. I would hear every sound. And you're right, with as the more time you give it, the more deeper you become, the more connected you become, the slowly the voices outside disappear and you really do come back home to yourself. And now it's so easy. God, we're talking about 10 years now. It's so easy for me to just close my eyes and just be in the present moment. But that was physically impossible 10 years ago. That was,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's so good to hear you say that because that gives people the recognition that, wait, just because this is how I am today doesn't mean it's how I'm going to be next week.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. And I just know that by you doing that, you do allow yourself to be present and more calm and connected to self.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And to allow those murmurings of your own inner voice to be heard, to come forward. Because how can we hear the inner voice or our inner guidance? How can we sense it unless we give a little attention to it?
100%. I feel we could talk about this forever and I'd love to do another episode with
We
you.
will, we will.
Because it's so true. Like how can we trust ourselves if we don't give ourselves
Right.
time to trust in ourselves? That it's
Right.
physically impossible. We trust in education, we trust in careers, but we don't trust in ourselves. What's that all about?
Wow. Maybe maybe you should write that down. We can have a whole conversation about that. Or maybe
Yeah.
that's, I know I'm going to interview you for Wisdom Talk Radio, so maybe that's what we talk about there. I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's really important.
But it's so fascinating, especially like I know I keep saying about women, obviously men do that as well, but we as women,
Mhm.
it's deeper than what we know because it's generationals of shame and guilt and being knocked down for having an intuition or being told that we're witches if we trust in the womb wisdom and the knowledge of ourselves. But actually, we are here to unravel all of that so we can shift humanity and bring this beautiful source energy, which is, I believe, is the feminine and the masculine mixed
It
together.
is. It is.
We've just been
It is.
one-sided for so long, so we need to kind of balance it up and then it will just flow easily in society.
Yes.
Yeah. But what I do want to ask you before we go,
Okay.
what are you most grateful for?
Oh my goodness. I, it, this may not be if you ask me next week, it might be something different if you'd asked me last year. But in this moment, I am so blessed by these two little gentlemen in my life. One is 7 months old, one is 2 years and 7 months. Um, and Henry and William,
Oh,
and they are so precious. And I got to spend the day yesterday with William, and I would just look every time he looked at me, it was this deep, soulful look, and he'd get this little smile,
oh,
and it would just be I felt so received.
yeah. Babies are source energy, aren't they? If you think about it, they are
They
unconditional
are.
love, the connection to higher source. But too often we think they don't know anything, but they are the ones that hold the tools. Back to
Yes.
remembrance. Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
God.
Yes.
Wow.
Again, so beautifully said.
Wow. That is so powerful. God, my mind is blown. Wow. And my last question is,
Okay.
what shines your inner light?
It is my source connection that shines
Mm.
from within. I mean, I, it, hmm. I guess I'm trying too hard to answer the question.
Just be present.
But
Yeah.
it is that. I mean, when someone says to me, whether it's I'm standing up doing a talk or teaching a class or online doing something,
Yeah.
and someone says something about my light, I think of it as my light, but I think of it so much more as the light.
Oof, that's beautiful. Yeah.
That I
Wow.
am nothing by myself, but I am everything in this space of co-creation.
Wow. We are going to have part two. Honestly, thank you, Laurie. That was amazing. And
Mm.
thank you for doing the work that you do, because with people like yourself out there helping people to connect to source energy, they are going to remember themselves. And that's what we need more in this life more than ever before, to really come back home to ourselves. So thank you so much for being yourself and doing the work that you do.
Thank you, Gurds. I could say the same to you because I already know that. I mean, the things that came through our conversation today feel really, well, they feel like a gift.
Oh, wow. Very powerful. I feel the same. There was something so potent about this conversation today. I'm like, wow. We've whatever, whoever hears this, however they hear it, it's going to shift their lives, because I could really feel that between us. This conversation was so powerful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, bless you. Honestly, what an amazing episode with Laurie. I absolutely adore this woman. There is just so much wisdom about source, being connected to the universe, and the importance of understanding energy. And I think all of us need to pay attention to what, who, or where we are surrounding ourselves, and what kind of energy we're inviting to our worlds. And do check out her work, because it's absolutely amazing. And as always, if there's anything you're struggling with letting the past go, want to speak your truth, visit my website at www.gurdshundal.com and check out my program, The Infinite Trust Method, where I help you to liberate your soul. Unfortunately, that's the end of the show. Before I leave, I want to leave you with this quote: "The only source of knowledge is experience." That's a quote by Albert Einstein. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye. And remember, stay happy, stay healthy, stay lit.